Would you stop and ask, or keep walking like everyone else did? She had been sitting there for over 3 hours. People walked by, hundreds of them, rolling carry-ons, dragging toddlers, balancing overpriced coffees, huffing and muttering about delays. Nobody really looked, not in the way that mattered. Gate C17, just past the bookstore and the pretzel place, had become a kind of limbo for Alyssa Carrington. Her back was straight, her makeup flawless, her clothes crisp and tailored. She looked like someone important, someone used to being in control, and that was exactly what she wanted people to believe. But the truth? She was tired, bone-deep tired, not from the flight delay, not from the hours spent in that wheelchair, but from the last 8 months of pretending she was still who she used to be. Her phone sat in her lap, screen dim, no bars. The car service her father's assistant had arranged was apparently stuck somewhere in rush hour traffic, and her driver had stopped responding an hour ago. The airline staff had offered a wheelchair escort, but they disappeared the second she declined help getting to the curb. Apparently, that was the end of their responsibility. She hadn't eaten since her flight landed. The bottled water in her bag had tipped over 2 hours ago, and she still hadn't worked up the nerve to ask someone to help her pick it up. Alyssa shifted in her chair. Her legs, as always, didn't move. They hadn't since the accident, when a distracted teenager ran a red light and changed the course of her life forever. She was a woman who used to run meetings, launch campaigns, lead teams, fly across the country without thinking twice. Now she had to build up courage just to ask a stranger to move a water bottle. No one stopped. No one saw her. Until a voice broke through the static of the terminal. "Excuse me, you okay?" She blinked, looked up. A man stood there, about her age, broad shoulders, slightly wrinkled t-shirt, backpack slung across his chest like he'd packed for efficiency, not fashion. Beside him, a small boy, 6, maybe 7, clutched a stuffed dinosaur and stared with wide eyes, like he couldn't figure out why this pretty lady looked so sad. Alyssa hesitated. "I'm fine," she said, instinctively. The words felt automatic, dull, but the man didn't walk away. He glanced at the bottle by her feet. "Are you sure? You've been here a while. I saw you earlier when we got off our flight." She hesitated again, caught between pride and something else. Something softer, something she didn't have a name for yet. "I'm just waiting on a car," she finally said. "It's late, that's all." The boy tugged at the man's sleeve. "Daddy, can we sit? My legs hurt." The man nodded. "Yeah, buddy, right here's good." They sat down on the metal bench next to her, just like that. Not out of pity, not with the nervous energy people usually had around her chair. They just sat. She glanced sideways. The boy was opening a pack of peanut butter crackers. His dad leaned back, stretching his legs, looking completely at ease, like this was just a normal moment, not a small revolution in Alyssa's day. "Sorry if I'm being too forward," the man said, turning toward her. "I'm Elijah. This little guy's name is Carter. We're heading to Omaha to visit my mom. She spoils him rotten." Carter grinned with cracker crumbs stuck to his lips. "She has a swing in the house." Alyssa cracked a small smile, the first one in hours. "Elijah," she repeated. "Nice to meet you. I'm Alyssa." "Nice to meet you too, Alyssa," he said, and something about the way he said it made her feel like a person again, not a problem someone had to solve. But just as she started to relax, her phone buzzed with a message that wiped the smile off her face completely. The message on her phone read, "Apologies, Ms. Carrington. Your car was sent to Terminal 1 instead of Terminal 3. New ETA is 45 minutes. Renee Carrington, Executive Transport." Alyssa stared at the screen, the muscles in her jaw tightening. That meant 4 hours total. In a terminal she didn't even need to be in anymore. And her driver? Still not answering. She didn't sigh. She wouldn't give anyone the satisfaction of seeing her fall apart in public. Elijah noticed her shift in posture. "Everything okay?" he asked. She hesitated, again. Why was it suddenly so hard to brush people off? "My ride's at the wrong terminal. Won't be here for a while." Carter looked up from his crackers. "You can ride with us." Alyssa chuckled softly, more from surprise than anything else. "Is that so?" Elijah smiled and looked at his son. "I think she might be going a different way, champ." Carter shrugged. "We got space." It wasn't the offer that got her. It was how natural it was. No awkward pause, No pity in the voice, just kindness. That had become rare. She turned to Elijah. Thanks, but I think I'll be fine. He nodded. Fair enough. But if you change your mind, you're welcome to walk with us to baggage claim. Not exactly a scenic route, but better than sitting here another hour. She blinked. Did he just say walk? Her tone went flat, not with anger, but with that sharp edge she'd learned to use when people assumed too much. I don't walk, not anymore. Elijah held up both hands. Bad wording. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. She studied him for a moment, waiting for the fidgeting, the apology spiral, but it didn't come. He just sat there calmly, like it was a conversation. Nothing more. That's rare, she said slowly. What is? Someone not panicking when I correct them. He gave a small shrug. I figure we all need grace these days, especially when we mess up. That caught her off guard. She didn't reply, but the look in her eyes softened a little. Carter suddenly climbed up beside his dad and whispered something in his ear. Elijah chuckled. He wants to know if your wheelchair has a horn. Alyssa raised an eyebrow and smirked. It does, but I don't use it unless someone really deserves it. Carter laughed like she had just told the best joke of his life. That moment, tiny, simple, silly, cracked something open in her chest. She didn't know what it was exactly, but it wasn't heavy. It felt human. Still, a voice inside her whispered, Don't get comfortable. Don't trust this. You never know what people really want. She looked at Elijah again. Why are you being so nice? He blinked, caught off guard. Because you're sitting alone at an airport, clearly waiting on help that hasn't come, and because my son thought you looked cool. Cool? Yeah. He said you looked like a superhero who just didn't want to be noticed. Alyssa didn't know what to say to that. She'd spent 8 months feeling invisible. To hear someone describe her like that? She looked away toward the window, blinking faster than she'd like to admit. Elijah didn't push. He just sat there, calm, comfortable in the silence. And that silence, oddly, felt better than most conversations she'd had in months. But just as things began to feel almost normal, a voice came over the intercom that made Alyssa's stomach turn. Paging passenger Alyssa Carrington, your transportation is now waiting at Terminal 1, Door 3. Please proceed at your earliest convenience. The announcement echoed across the terminal like it was nothing. Just another name. Just another delay. Alyssa froze. She hadn't given them permission to page her publicly. Her face flushed, not from embarrassment, but from the sharp sting of being reminded she was no longer in control. Elijah glanced at her. That you? She nodded slowly, lips pressed into a thin line. Yeah, guess the driver figured out how to press a button. He raised an eyebrow. You want help getting over there? She hesitated. I don't want to be a burden. You're not, he said simply, not missing a beat. But I'm not going to push if you don't want help. Just say the word. She looked at him for a long second. She didn't know what it was about this guy. Maybe it was the tone, or the calm way he offered help like it wasn't charity, like it was just what people do for each other. I might need someone to walk with me, she said finally, her voice quieter. I can move on my own, but I'm not great with crowds yet. You got it, Carter perked up. Can I come too? Elijah chuckled. You are coming. Who else is going to tell us where all the vending machines are? As they began to move, Elijah walking slowly beside her, Carter skipping ahead like he'd just won a field trip, the air around Alyssa shifted, not dramatically, but enough. She'd spent so long feeling like she was either invisible or a spectacle. But now, walking or rolling with this man and his talkative son, she just felt present, like part of a moment that wasn't rehearsed or guarded or filtered through anyone else's expectations. So, Elijah said, glancing sideways, you visiting or heading home? Neither, she replied. Business, or what's left of it. He waited, sensing more. My dad owns Carrington Tech. I used to run the digital strategy side before the accident. Elijah gave a small nod. Must have been a big change. She let out a bitter laugh. That's an understatement. 1 minute I'm flying first class to meetings in San Jose, and the next I'm learning how to transfer from a hospital bed to a chair without crying. She didn't know why she was telling him this. She never talked like this, not even to her sister. Guess I didn't like the version of myself who couldn't do everything on her own. Elijah didn't respond right away. He let her words settle. Then he said, I know what that's like. She looked at him, surprised. He smiled, but it wasn't a happy one. My son's mom walked out when he was 2. No warning. One day she said she was going to her cousin's house, never came back. I had no idea what I was doing. First time he got sick, I Googled how to take a kid's temperature with one of those forehead things and panicked when it said 100.3. Alyssa chuckled softly. That's barely even a fever. Yeah, well, I didn't know that. I thought I was losing him. There was silence again, but not awkward, not forced, just understanding. At the elevator, Carter hit the button and turned to Alyssa. Do you have to be in a chair forever? The air got heavy for a beat. Alyssa met his eyes. Probably, but you know what? I'm still figuring out what forever means. Carter thought about it, then nodded. I think you're still cool. She smiled. Thanks. I think you're cool too. But as the elevator doors opened and they stepped inside, a woman in a navy blazer took one look at Alyssa and said something that made Elijah stop cold in his tracks. The woman in the navy blazer, mid-50s, pinched face, name tag clipped to her lapel, looked straight past Elijah and Carter, her eyes locking on Alyssa. There you are, she said, arms crossed. I was told you'd need assistance. Let's get you downstairs before there's more confusion. Her tone wasn't angry, but it wasn't kind either. It was that customer service voice laced with condescension, like Alyssa was a misdelivery or a misfiled document. Alyssa's smile vanished. I'm fine, she replied, polite but clipped. My driver was sent to the wrong terminal. I've got someone helping me now. The woman blinked, then glanced at Elijah, then at Carter. Something passed across her face, not quite surprise, more like judgment. I see, she said slowly. Well, if you change your mind, I'm authorized to escort you to the curb. Your father was very specific. Elijah stepped slightly forward. Not aggressive, just present, solid. She said she's got help, he said calmly. No need to hover. The woman's eyebrows twitched. I wasn't speaking to you, sir. No, but you're standing in front of a 6-year-old, a woman who's been sitting alone for hours, and talking like you're reading a report. The elevator doors opened. Alyssa rolled in, jaw tight. Elijah followed, Carter tugging on his hand. Once inside, silence. The doors closed. That happen a lot? Elijah asked quietly. Alyssa nodded once. Too often. People think if you're in a chair, you must also need someone to make choices for you, or speak for you, or manage you. Carter looked up. That lady sounded like a robot. Alyssa laughed, caught off guard. You're not wrong. Elijah leaned against the wall of the elevator, arms folded. You handled it well. I'd have lost my cool if someone talked to me like that. I used to. Now I just save my energy for people who matter. She glanced at him. People like your son. He smiled. That kid keeps me grounded, makes me see the world the way it should be. The doors opened to the lower level. Cool air swept through the hallway, the echo of rolling bags in the distance. As they moved toward the pickup zone, Alyssa's voice dropped to a softer tone. You know what's funny? She said. The worst part of this hasn't been the injury. It's how people changed around me. People I've known for years. Clients, family, even my friends. Suddenly they were walking on eggshells, talking to the chair, not to me. Elijah nodded, listening. I used to have this assistant, Renee, always quick, always efficient. Since the accident, she talks to me like I'm 80 years old, calls me hon, uses that slow, loud tone like I've lost my brain. Elijah shook his head. That's not just rude, that's lazy. What do you mean? It's easier for people to reduce someone than to relearn them. They don't want to adjust. They want you to go back to the version they were comfortable with. Alyssa looked at him, eyebrows raised. You a therapist on the side? He laughed. Nah, just a guy who's been underestimated before. They reached the sliding doors. Outside, the sun was low, casting long shadows across the pavement. A sleek black SUV with tinted windows sat at the curb. The driver, finally, stood beside it, staring at his phone like the world owed him something. Alyssa stopped just before the door. Elijah turned to her. You good from here? She looked at the car, then back at him. I'm good. And thank you. I don't know if I would have made it through the last couple hours without losing it. If I hadn't met you and Carter. Carter grinned. You didn't lose anything. Alyssa smiled, this time more fully. He's got a good heart. Elijah looked down at his son. Yeah, he does. I just try to keep up. But just as Alyssa turned toward the curb, something Elijah said earlier came back to her, and for the first time in a long time, she decided not to let the moment pass. Alyssa paused right at the sliding door, hand resting lightly on the push rim of her wheelchair. Elijah, she said without turning around, can I ask you something weird? He stepped closer, curious. Sure. She looked over her shoulder. Her expression had shifted, less guarded now, more open, more real. Why didn't you Google me or ask what I do? Most people either want something or try to figure out if they should want something. Elijah scratched his jaw. Because you looked like someone who needed space, not a resume. She smiled faintly. That's rare. He tilted his head. Can I ask you something weird now? She nodded. Why were you flying commercial? I mean, if your dad runs Carrington Tech and you used to be a top exec, I just figured... Alyssa leaned back slightly, amused. Figured I'd have a private jet and someone to roll me down the aisle with a gold-trimmed lap blanket. Elijah laughed. Hey, you said it, not me. She took a breath and let it out slow. I used to. Fly private, I mean, suites, lounges, fast-track security, you name it. After the accident, my father wanted to keep things controlled. Let's keep you comfortable while you recover, he said. Elijah caught the sarcasm in her tone. But comfort turned into isolation, she continued. No meetings, no more hands-on work. Every time I asked to rejoin the team, I'd get, let's wait a bit longer, or maybe part-time for now. She paused. The worst part? He meant well. Elijah was quiet. Alyssa added, so I booked my own flight this time, coach. No handler, no corporate safety net. Just me rolling through Terminal 3 like everyone else. Carter, now busy tying and untying his sneaker, chimed in. Did it feel weird? Yeah, she said, but also kinda great. Elijah nodded. Sometimes you've got to remind people you still know how to live. She looked at him again, more seriously now. That's what today was for me. A test, to see if I could do it. Not just the travel, but everything in between. He looked around. The noise of car doors slamming, distant airport chatter, a plane roaring overhead. You passed, he said. And not just the test you think. She squinted. What does that mean? It means some people lose their mobility. Some people lose their voice. You still got both. That's a big deal. Alyssa stared at him for a second, not quite ready to reply. Her eyes shimmered for a moment before she blinked it away. You're kind of annoying. You know that? She said. Elijah grinned. I've heard that before. Then, as if on cue, her driver finally looked up and noticed her. He rushed forward. Miss Carrington, so sorry for the mix-up. Alyssa gave a nod, but her eyes didn't leave Elijah. I should go, she said. He's already an hour late. Elijah reached out, shook her hand, firm, steady. It was good meeting you, Alyssa, really. She held his hand a second longer than expected. Likewise. Then Carter stepped up and held out a cracker. In case you get hungry in the car. She took it, laughing. Thank you. That's probably the nicest thing anyone's given me all day. Carter beamed. It's peanut butter, but the good kind. Elijah gave a two-finger wave. Safe travels, all right? Alyssa rolled toward the car, but halfway there she paused, turned. Elijah, she called out. Yeah? If you ever decide to stop fixing vending machines... He raised an eyebrow. Who said I fix vending machines? She grinned. Just a guess. He laughed. Go on. What were you saying? She hesitated. I'm starting a new division. Something real. Ground level. Human-focused. If you ever want to work with someone who sees people, reach out. Elijah didn't answer right away, but the look on his face said more than words. But just as Alyssa climbed into the SUV and the door closed behind her, something inside her shifted. Like a door that had been stuck half shut for months had finally been nudged open. The ride to the hotel was smooth, too smooth. Alyssa hated it. The driver didn't talk, which was fine. But he also didn't ask. Not if she needed help with her bag, not if she preferred the ramp or the lift. Just silence, paired with glances through the rearview mirror that made her feel like luggage instead of a passenger. She stared out the window. Downtown Kansas City passed by in a blur of taillights and old brick buildings. She wasn't in the mood for a skyline. In her lap sat Carter's peanut butter cracker. She hadn't even opened it, but she couldn't let it go. By the time she reached the hotel, her phone had 4 new messages from her father's assistant, 1 from her physical therapist, and none from anyone she actually wanted to hear from. She didn't reply. Inside the room, it was too clean, too quiet. The kind of quiet that pressed in on her. She pulled the curtains closed, but even then, she could still feel the world moving without her. And all she could think about was Elijah, the way he didn't flinch when she corrected him, the way he didn't tiptoe around her like she might shatter, the way he let Carter ask the questions that adults were too nervous to. She'd spent 8 months surrounded by people who either wanted to protect her or pretend she didn't exist. But that man and his little boy, they just saw her. She opened her laptop, stared at the blinking cursor on a half-written proposal about accessibility and innovation. She'd planned to pitch it next week. Now she wasn't sure it mattered, but one sentence kept echoing in her head. "You're not broken." Elijah had said it in passing, like a fact, like something he didn't need her to believe. He already did. No one else had said that. Not her father, not her doctors, not even her reflection. She closed the laptop. Something needed to change. The next morning, the sun was barely up when she rolled through the lobby and out onto the quiet street. Traffic hadn't picked up yet. For once, she didn't have to dodge strollers, suitcases, or people who definitely weren't looking where they were going. At the corner coffee shop, she ordered 2 hot chocolates. The guy behind the counter asked if she needed help carrying them. She looked him in the eye and said, "No, but thanks for asking." He blinked, nodded. "Sure thing." Back outside, she sat at one of the patio tables and pulled out her phone. She scrolled through her recent calls, stopped at an unsaved number from the airport Wi-Fi login. She hesitated, then pressed call. 2 rings, then a sleepy voice. "Hello? Elijah?" A pause, then, "Alyssa? Sorry, did I wake you?" "No, yeah, but I'm up now. Everything okay?" She looked out at the empty sidewalk. "I don't know. I just wanted to say thank you for yesterday and for not making me feel like a project." His voice warmed. "You were never a project. You were just someone who looked like they'd been standing in the rain too long." She laughed. "Well, thanks for holding the umbrella." He chuckled softly. "Anytime." Then she cleared her throat. "Also, that thing you said about not being broken? Yeah? I think I needed to hear that more than I realized." There was a quiet hum on the line. Then, "You didn't need me to say it. You just needed someone to remind you." She swallowed, hard. "I've got 2 hot chocolates. No idea why. If you're still in town..." "I'm not," he said. "Flight left at 6. She smiled. "Figures. Well, tell Carter I saved him a peanut butter cracker. He'll love that." But just as she was about to hang up, Elijah said one last thing that stuck with her for the rest of the day, and maybe the rest of her life. Just before she could say goodbye, Elijah's voice came through the phone again, low, steady, like he'd been waiting for the right moment to say it. "You don't have to prove anything, Alyssa. You're already enough." Her throat tightened. For the past 8 months, her world had shrunk into checklists and progress reports, relearning how to dress, drive, navigate, speak up, always measuring herself against who she used to be, always fighting to deserve her place back at the table. But no one, not her father, not her colleagues, not even her closest friends, had reminded her that she didn't have to earn her worth. Not until Elijah. She didn't say anything right away, just let the words rest where they landed. Then she whispered, "Thank you." And this time she meant it from somewhere deeper. 2 weeks later, the new division launched. No press release, no giant announcement. Just a quiet email sent to a short list of employees with a subject line that read, "Let's start again, with people first." Alyssa named the department Ground Line. It would focus on accessible design, inclusive tech, and real-world application. Nothing hypothetical, no ivory towers, just honest work, done by people who knew how it felt to be left out of a system that wasn't built for them. She chose her team herself. Engineers who had once been overlooked, project managers who used to rely on temp contracts, developers with gaps in their resumes because life had gotten messy and no one waited for them to recover. She didn't tell her father until the first prototype had already been tested. He wasn't thrilled, but for the first time in years, she didn't flinch at his disapproval, because for the first time, she wasn't following his plan. She was building her own. Somewhere in Omaha, Elijah was crouched beside a stubborn vending machine at a high school gymnasium. Carter sat nearby, drawing in a sketchbook while munching on a granola bar. Elijah's phone buzzed. One new email from Alyssa Carrington. Subject, ground line. He read it, then read it again. She hadn't asked him for anything, just told him what she was building. Invited him to stop by someday. No pressure, no pitch. Just a message from a woman who used to think she needed the world to fix her. And now, she was fixing the world, one honest thing at a time. 6 months after the airport, Elijah and Carter flew to Kansas City for the weekend. Not for a vacation. Carter had insisted they go visit the superhero lady with wheels. They met outside a renovated workspace tucked between a coffee shop and a hardware store. The logo on the door was simple. Ground line. Clean lettering. No corporate fluff. Inside, the walls were full of sketches, notes, and little quotes handwritten on index cards. Carter spotted one on the whiteboard and pointed. "That's what you said." Elijah turned. The card read, "You don't have to prove anything. You're already enough." He smiled. Alyssa wheeled around the corner with a tablet in her lap and a sharp new haircut. She looked different, but not because of her chair or her clothes. She looked free. "You made it," she said, beaming. "Told you he'd come," Carter said, like he was the one who'd set it all up. They laughed. Alyssa gave Carter a high five. "Still got that dinosaur?" "Better," he said, pulling out a small plush octopus. "This one listens better." She glanced at Elijah. "Smart kid." He grinned. "Takes after his mom." They didn't talk about wheelchairs, or the past, or the airport. They talked about the work, about making things better, about doing something that mattered. They shared lunch and ideas, and later that afternoon, Carter fell asleep on the couch in the corner, hugging the octopus. Alyssa looked over at the boy, then back at Elijah. "You know," she said, "he might be the reason this exists." Elijah shrugged. "I think you just needed a reason to remember who you are." She was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "Maybe." Then she pulled something from her bag and handed it to him. It was a cracker, peanut butter, the good kind. He laughed out loud. "Full circle," he said. She smiled. "Sometimes strangers save you, not with big gestures, just by showing up." He looked at her, and staying long enough to matter. It doesn't take a grand act to change someone's life. Sometimes the most meaningful thing you can do is notice the person nobody else does. Ask, sit, listen, treat them like they aren't fragile or inconvenient, but like they belong right where they are. People don't need you to be a hero. They need you to be human. And sometimes strangers are exactly what saves us. If this story moved you, take a second to look up, look around. Whether it's in an airport, a cafe, or your own neighborhood, someone might be waiting for a small moment of kindness to remind them they matter. Don't underestimate the power of a simple question. Are you okay? If you enjoyed this story, share it with someone who needs it. And remember, you don't need to fix people. You just need to see them.